Hi, if you're watching this video, then you're curious about how to install a backplate on a Strat for the first time. Now I'm talking about drilling the holes for the backplate, the holes not being there, a blank canvas so to speak, and you having to go in and line up and drill and place those holes. You may also hear this referred to as a trim claw backplate or a spring cavity backplate, but we all know what we're talking about here, right? Anyway, I want to also preface this video. It's part of a series of videos I'm doing, a playlist about this guitar. Now this guitar is a parts caster, but it is my attempt to sort of replicate a Fender Custom Shop style Stratocaster. More specifically a 61, 62, 63 style, pretty heavily relicked Stratocaster. Now I got this as a blank body and a blank neck. I customized the neck to my specifications, but otherwise everything on here has been done by me. I've relicked everything, I have installed everything, and so I've made a playlist about how I've done all those pieces and parts of this guitar. So if you're interested, please watch that video. Now let me say that I've actually decided not to keep the backplate on the guitar on a normal basis. I just find it easier when changing strings, and there's this theory about the guitar having a better tone, but that's very subjective. There's no concrete hard evidence behind it. It's all opinion. But I am of the mindset that if I can do anything to help out the tone, I'll try it. So for convenience sake and the theory that tone might be better, I just decided to keep the backplate off. And I'll show you a picture of what that normally looks like. Now you'll notice that the guitar is pretty much completely finished. It is completely finished in that it plays well, it's strung up, everything is perfectly intact. The only thing I may add or modify is I may change the springs out in the back of my trim, bridge, whatever assembly you want to call it. I have the Fender Vintage trim or the 62 reissue. I made a video about that, so check that out. But I may change the springs on the back to a more vintage style spring, and there's also a lot of, I guess, subjectivity about those springs as well. How can a spring have any effect on the sound the strings produce out of the pickups and things of that nature? But again, I may do it, I may not. If I do, I'll try to make a video about my opinion of those springs and if they're worth it or not. So like I said, the guitar is finished, but I made the videos as I went along, as I built the guitar. So the clips that you'll see are videos I took while I was putting the guitar together. So that's why in the video the guitar was not completely put together, and now it is. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and leave a comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Thanks for watching. Okay, I decided to go ahead and put the back plate on the guitar. I'm taking my cues. I know there's a lot of tape all over the place, but I wanted to get as straight as I possibly could. I'm taking this off from the guy, Jason, I guess, a while back. He had a series of videos on YouTube putting a Warmoth build together, and it used to be at like Musician's Den or something like that. And I think I'll put the information in the description below, but I think it's smbstressfest is his username. Yeah, all credit goes to him. I'm just ripping off of that, but I thought it wouldn't hurt to just show my take at it and how it goes for me. Just another example. So what I did first was I measured between the holes of the neck plate, or the neck holes, and they're 1.5 inches, I think. Yeah, 1.5 inches. And so 3/4 is the middle, and then I just eyeballed, put a piece of tape. I put the piece of tape all the way down to the strap button at the bottom and just eyeballed that line. And then I put some tape here and here with the plate off, just above and below the cavity. And then I just took my straight edge, put it on there, and then drew the lines here and here. And then I measured the holes on the plate, which is 3 inches. So 1.5 inches is these big middle lines here. And then I just started putting some random like 1/8 inch lines, and then just got an idea, and then I put a 1/16 of an inch in the middle there. But you know, just the idea is you want this to be parallel with the neck plate, so it can be on either side, but you also want to account for the string holes in the bridge plate or the bridge block. So that's all we're doing. Is the side to side is where these lines come in, and then the up and down, I'm just really using the holes in the bridge block for that. And I even put a pair of strings in. I wanted to make sure I could just barely clear, and really that's the only thing you can do is just barely clear the hole in the plate. But I can do that with either one. I'm barely, and I guess it depends. These are like Ernie ball strings, so they have the ball in the end. I'm not really catching on anything, I don't think, so it seems about even. I'm sure you can see those strings popping up. So now I'm just gonna take my trusty nail, if I can find it, and just make a little mark. And because, you know, I could use like a Sharpie, but this is a black guitar, so it's not gonna work. And it would work on the wood over here, but there's only 2 spots. So I'm just gonna use this, and then I'll take the plate off, and yeah, I'll try to show you what I do with that, but it's just gonna be pretty simple. Okay, I made a little indentation with my nail here, so, and the reason these pieces of tape are on the plate was just to hold it in place so that when I put the little punch in there that it wouldn't move the plate around. So I can clearly see all my holes. They are pretty close there, but I looked at pictures of my old American Special, and they're pretty close there at the bottom of the cavity, so I hope that's okay. Hope I don't need to go further down. That's gonna suck. Yeah, we'll see about that. Okay, I decided that this hole was a little too close for comfort to the cavity there by the bridge block, so I moved it down slightly. Now I'm gonna go back and punch with the nail, and yeah, it's gonna be, I don't know, hopefully it won't be too difficult to go in there with a drill bit and kind of do it by hand and get a good hole started so I can do it with the drill. I think I was fairly successful when I moved the holes down and punched them with the nail, so I think it's all good. And then I took my drill bit by hand and just went in, actually with the guard on, and just kind of worked it by hand to get a hole started. I'm using a 16th drill bit. That was actually recommended to me by Tone Bomb here in the instructions for the body of the guitar. So that's pretty cool that they included that. They said actually like a 5/64 works, but for softer woods they said a 16th also works. So I'm going to use that just so it's a good tight fit, and I'll try to use some wax or something on the screws to kind of lubricate them when I actually put them in the body. Alright, I got my holes drilled and everything, so all went well. Hopefully everything fits properly. And as a reminder, this is a Stuart McDonald plate. It had a made in Korea tag on it. The screws are relic from Stuart McDonald, and I put a little bit of wax from one of my wife's candles. So they smell great, and hopefully they'll go in well. So yeah, let's see what happens. The wax isn't the best for doing something like this, but it's all I got. So let's see how well they go in. Alright, there it is. You can see it's all screwed down, and I can still get the strings out, in and out. Alright, so that's good. I got clearance, and the neck plate is not actually on the guitar. As you can see, there's no neck there, but I just kind of placed it where the holes are, and probably not the best angle there for seeing how it lines up. Maybe that's a little better, but as you can see, it lines up fairly well. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. So one thing that kind of concerns me is that the block is actually hitting the plate. So when I move it, like so, may even be able to hear it. It's hitting the back cavity plate. So I don't know if that's normal. I can't remember if my last Strat did that. Actually, I took the plate off of the last Strat I had. I don't know if that's a normal thing. I know some people have had trouble with interference building Strats with different size thicknesses of bodies and stuff like that. But yeah, it's hitting it, but it's just kind of bumping it. So I don't think it's an issue. I don't think it'll have any bearing on the tuning or anything for it returning to tuning. But if you have a comment about that, feel free to leave it below. So after I made the comment about the springs touching the backplate on that last video, I got kind of concerned, and then I was scouring the internet to see if anybody else had that issue or if it was a problem, if it would dampen the sustain or anything like that. So I took the backplate off, and I've got this level here, so it's bridging a gap between the two pieces of wood, obviously. And I got the idea. I can just see it by eye, but it helps to put, a light behind it. I don't know if that's going to show up on the video or not. It's really going to be hard to translate. It's pretty good there. You can see on the middle spring that it is not actually touching. And I can do it with the plate itself to a certain extent. I can shine the light down in there. But, and again, it's not going to be the easiest to translate onto video, but for my own assurance, I felt good about realizing that it's actually not touching. So it's not got a lot of clearance, that's for sure, but it's not touching, and the bridge plate is decked, so that's as close as it's going to get. So thankfully, it's a tight clearance, but that's what I got. And then I also wanted to make a point really quick. I was reading and researching about springs, and I've heard about the raw vintage springs, and they're supposed to be really good, like the old springs, and they're a little bit less tight, less tension. These actually seem pretty flexible, not very tight. When I first got them, they were kind of like sticky, I guess you would call it, but I just kind of worked them a little bit. And so I don't have anything to compare them to. I don't have another Strat, and I don't have a pair of raw vintage springs. So I don't know if I could maybe take it to a music store or something, or find a friend. But to me, they seem pretty flexible. I obviously don't have the neck on it yet, so I haven't strung it. I don't know how easy it's going to be, because the intention is I'm going to have this decked. The bridge plate is going to be flush against the body right there, right? So that's how I like my Strats, so it doesn't go out of tune or anything, or when you detune it, you don't have to worry about the setting up the bridge or the trim back up. When I do get the neck on and the guitar finished and strung up and everything, I'll be able to tell then whether or not I like these springs, and whether or not I can use 5, or if I need to use 3, or if I want to invest in the raw vintage springs, or even try to compare to see if these are like those. So a lot of unknowns right now, a lot of factors in play, which I just can't figure out at this time. But I just want to make that observation that the springs that I do have on here feel pretty springy and not a whole lot of tension. So we'll see when that time comes.